Maine, and I really felt called to come in here and spend some time with you guys talking about voyeurism and somatic kink. So voyeurism is a kink profile, is a part of a kink profile that I've not seen a kink profile where it isn't in the top 10. I'm not saying that there is no, that I'm sure that there are some that rule, but in my experience, I've seen a lot of kink profiles now, and everybody has voyeurism in their top 10 in what I've seen. So before I get into speaking about voyeurism and what it is and what it means, let's talk about what somatic kink is and how does this even come about, where our kink profile can actually give us clues and snippets about what's happening in our life as well as within our sexuality. So let's talk about that. The first thing that I want to say is everybody has a kink profile. Everybody. No one is exempt from that, and it is alive within all of us. Now, if depending on how much you've journeyed with me and traveled with me, you may or may not know that everything in our lives is, of course, interconnected. So how we do one thing is how we do all things. But the cross-pollination and the intersection between how we show up in the bedroom and our desires and the fantasy versus the reality mirrors and reflect how we show up and serve in our lives, right? So we work with this somatic kink that lies in our bodies to work with unconscious kink, right? And we get to transmute that, and we do that through the body, through embodiment, and through the subconscious mind, through the energy body, and throughout multiple layers of our consciousness. But more than that, let's just rewind that a little bit more. And what does that even mean, right? So what happens with kink? Everybody has a kink, right? Now, a kink or a fetish is something that's developed within often the earliest stages of our lives, right? So for an example, let's talk about someone who has a foot fetish, right? That might come about when this child has its happiest, most loving, amazing memory playing on the floor with their toys by their mother's feet, right? So in their minds, they've taken a mental snapshot and in their subconscious mind have formed this beautiful moment that they're sharing where they can see their mother's feet. So here in lies where a kink, or in this case a fetish, is actually born, right? So there a foot fetish is created, okay? Now, this happens in our kink profile and it's revealed to us through our sexuality, but we also have unconscious kink that's playing out in parallel ways throughout our lives and we don't even recognize it, right? So for me, I can look at a kink profile and I can tell you exactly what that means, of course, within your sexuality, but I can also intuit what's happening in your life, right? And I can tell you exactly where you're in your power and where you're in your false power, and we can navigate that space in between as to how we know that dance. How do we know when we're in our power? How do we know when we're in our false power? Now, why do we even need to know this? Because as Carl Jung says, the whole point of this is we need to make the unconscious conscious, right? And that is the whole point. As soon as we bring it forward into our conscious mind, we get to transmute that, right? But not only that, is that happens within our subconscious mind, but it also happens in our bodies. So our bodies are like libraries of information where trauma and unconscious kink is trapped in our bodies. That's why embodiment and integration is so important, right? Is because we all know what it feels like to be disconnected from our bodies or be ruled by our heads and not listen to our body's wisdom. So that is kink. That's somatic kink, and that's how it unfolds within our awareness, right? Now, it could look in a different multitude of ways, and it really does play out in every single area. But today, I really wanted to focus on voyeurism because it is such a popular kink. I would say the most popular kink. Now, it's a beautiful kink. In its full power, it is absolutely beautiful and sacred and worshipping. In its false power, or you might call it the shadow, it can reveal a completely different set of circumstances. And it's one where I see in a lot of people, I see it unfold in so many different ways. So what is this voyeurism, and why is it so important that we discuss it? Now, first of all, I think it's worth noting that we need to get comfortable with our kink. We need to actually understand that, I say all the time is we're 50 shades of fucked up, right? We're all messy. We're all this, these messy creations. We all have these things that are inside of us because we all have a subconscious mind. We all have experienced life. And we feel it in our body, right? Because this is how trauma happens. Trauma has a very natural unfolding. Trauma in that primal animalistic neovortex has a natural flow, and it comes to a natural close. Now, interestingly enough, in this natural flow of trauma, right? Of this primal instinct of the neocortex is when that fight, flight, freeze, and fawn comes into play, right? Now, what happens if we interrupt that natural cycle, which we often do with the mind, right? So we trap and we cut off that cycle, right? So every time we stimulate this fight, flight, freeze response, what we do is, because we're such sophisticated animals, is we interject this cycle and we try to reason with our minds, right? We try to override, we try to control these situations. And every time we do that, we break this cycle, and trauma is trapped in our bodies. Now, this fight, flight, freeze, guess what it's based off of? It's arousal and stimulation, right? So it's the exact same thing. So not only can we be like highly aroused and stimulated sexually, but our nervous system, it's this exact same thing happens when that fight, flight, or freeze response is activated. So it's the same. So this arousal and stimulation point is really important in uncovering when we work with somatic kink and unconscious kink that's in the body. Now, that's a massive part of this work as a somatic kink practitioner, is identifying that arousal and stimulation point. Because once we do that, We go through in the subconscious mind and we access whatever that response is, whatever that unconscious kink is that we're getting off on. And then we take it from the subconscious mind, we work out where it's coming from in the body, and then we can actually go about transmuting this kink. So it is the most extraordinary transformation in a relatively quite short period of time, because we're not only working with the subconscious mind and your unconscious kink, we're working with the body as well. So it's really amazing work. I could talk about that all day long, but I won't, because I promised. But if you have any questions about that, please ask, please let me know, because it is fascinating work and it's really important work as well. So I wanted to talk to you about voyeurism. Now, as I said earlier, is everyone has a kink profile. Voyeurism would be one of the most popular kinks that I've seen in my experience throughout this journey. Now, the thing with voyeurism, right? So voyeurism is, as you may or I may not know, is it people who like to watch, right? So voyeurism is getting off or getting aroused on watching other people, right? Now, in the traditional context of kink or BDSM, right, we get off on watching other people in their pleasure, when they're aroused, when they're getting taken away on this beautiful journey of eroticism, right? Now, we see this in porn all the time. This is why the porn industry is so popular, but it's showing us one little pocket, and it's really not giving us a well-rounded understanding of what voyeurism is. Because what is underneath that, if you were to look at the unconscious kink and what that means and how that's unfolding in your life, right? So if we look at voyeurism through the lens of what it's looking like in your life, voyeurism is absolutely beautiful, because what it says, I love to see people who love life. I love to witness people who are in their pleasure. I love to witness people happy. I get off on seeing other people happy and in their pleasure, which is an absolutely beautiful quality to have. And you can see how there's a real power there, because it can bring community, it can bring communion, it can bring this common unity of where we get to witness happiness and pleasure, right? It's beautiful to witness in other people when they're in that full pleasure, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So there's a real power in that, right? And that's really, say for example, if you're working with clients or in your job or in your business or whatever, however that looks for you, is that you get off on seeing the success of your clients, right? Or at your job, you love your job because you enjoy seeing other people happy and in their pleasure and in life, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So that is the voyeurism in its full power. Now, you look at the other side of that, you look at the false power, or one might call it the shadow. The shadow side of voyeurism is that you can actually be a bystander in your own life. You can watch the world go by and you can go, wow, I'm actually just really happy. I'm getting off on watching you live your life. I'm so happy for you. Like, I get off on making sure that you're living the best life possible. I get off on doing everything for you and making sure that everybody else is happy, everybody else is in their pleasure, everybody else is taken care of, but not you. So you become a bystander. You're outsourcing your power, putting everybody else's happiness and joy and pleasure before your own. So you're becoming a bystander in your own life. And that is really the shadow and the false power of voyeurism. And we tell ourselves that, I'm happy when you're happy. When you're happy, I'm happy. I just love witnessing other people in their joy. That makes me happy. You make me happy. Which is beautiful and lovely, but it's also a load of crap, right? Why is it a load of crap? Because it feels good, right? But in that, there's a safety there, because it's a real fear of you actually allowing yourself and feeling worthy enough to experience pleasure for yourself. Witnessing it in other people is absolutely extraordinary, and it is beautiful, and it is empowering, and absolutely divine and sacred. But it doesn't come at the cost of you not participating in your own life, of you not claiming what it is you actually want. So your wants, your desires is just as important as other people. Now you can see why this is such a popular kink, and how so many of us can fall in the false power and the shadow of this kink that is voyeurism. Because how many people do we know that have unfulfilled dreams, that fantasize about something, but will never take the action to go get it? This happens all the time, where we just watch life just go by and it's gone. So I think we have to ask ourselves, where am I being a bystander in my own life? Where am I holding myself back from letting pleasure ripple throughout my body? Where am I holding myself back from showing up as pleasure, from allowing myself to receive pleasure, right? Where am I holding myself back? But what's underneath that? What am I so afraid of? Am I afraid to receive pleasure? Am I afraid to lose control? Do I feel unworthy? Do I feel unworthy of pleasure? Am I uncertain about what it is I actually want? So what is that? What's the undercurrent? What's the thread in that, right? So that's really what we want to look for, is to really just diagnose. I'm exploring myself back. And where are you not giving yourself permission to receive? Do you feel worthy to receive? If you think about worth and receiving, that is huge. So many people don't feel worthy to receive. So allowing ourselves to open ourselves up to receive is really the entry point into this way of life, right? Into melting in to the full power that is available to us through voyeurism, but is not an opportunity. It's not a scapegoat for us to hide. It's not a scapegoat for us to watch our lives go by. It is not an opportunity for us to hover above life. It's about us penetrating our own lives, honoring what we actually want, allowing pleasure in, and allowing ourselves to feel the full power of it, to not only witness, but also be witnessed. And that ultimately is really what voyeurism is about honoring both sides of that coin. Allowing ourselves to be seen as much as we see other people. And that is the true dance of voyeurism. right? So, yeah, if you have any questions, let me know, and I'm more than happy to answer them for you. If you want to explore your kink more, then please reach out. There are a multitude of ways in which we can do that, and I can help you with that. If you feel like you really want to tap into your pleasure and you need to let go, because the biggest fear around pleasure, and a lot of people fear pleasure, like I would even say the majority of people fear pleasure. It's not that they fear pleasure, it's they fear letting go and losing control. Yeah, so if you feel like that might be you, then come and join me at my masterclass this Friday on the 11th of June. And it's all about the art of letting go. And we start at the beginning. Yeah. Where to begin, how to begin, why we need to begin. So I would love for you to join me at the Art of Letting Go. If you've got any questions, please let me know. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. But that is me over and out. I will be back next week for more glorious conversations. If there is something in particular you want me to talk about in a show, then let me know, because I'm more than happy to delve into that. Okay, guys, I'll see you next week. Bye.